Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike. Mike, it's been a year for the Absolute Universe at DC. Something that was given a lot of hype. DC did the All In video. They talked about this universe, and we're mainly going to focus on the Absolute Universe. You and I have said a lot of things about how we feel like the main universe has gotten better. They certainly, brought some A-list talent onto these books. A Justice League book with Mark Waid. You have, Jeremy Adams on Aquaman. You've had some Jim Lee doing some stuff on Batman, even though that's been delayed. But the Absolute Universe has been interesting, and it has far outsold its mainstream counterpart. We are a year in on Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. We've seen a second wave with Martian Manhunter, Flash, and Green Lantern. And then we appear to be getting kind of a third wave here. A Catwoman Absolute series that's had 5 issues, and then Absolute Green Arrow, which will be interesting because we saw Oliver Queen get killed in that one shot they did. Mike, a year
Speedy,
in, where are you at on the Absolute universe? What do you think it's done well? How you feeling overall?
I'm still absolutely mostly all in. And when they pitched it last year, I was excited about it. But when they do these pitches, there's always a grain of salt. You're kind of thinking, hey, we want them to take a swing for the fences. And then when they do and strike out, then we give them a lot of flack. So we need to give them credit where credit is due. They're all selling really well, and I think it just goes to show that what everybody was trying to tell them was that you kind of need a reset, and we need some jumping on points, and we need to get excited about these characters again in a new way that doesn't have to do with an infinite crisis upon another infinite crisis and a million different tie-in books. Like if you're just a Flash fan, you can buy Absolute Flash and be happy. You don't have to buy Absolute Superman to understand what's going on in Absolute Flash. I mean, I think that is the most successful ingredient right there. That and the fact that the jumping on point, because you have a lot, like we've always said, it's not that people don't like superheroes. They do. And it's not that people don't want superhero stories anymore. They do. They just want good ones that they don't have to, understand extremely weird continuity complications to comprehend a book. They needed a good, fresh jumping on point. DC realized that, and so did Marvel. They're doing their Ultimate Universe and having some success there. But that's what the readership wants, and so we're finally getting what we want.
Yeah, I think there's two huge thoughts I have on the Absolute Universe, and I think overall I'd give it an A+ for the first year. In terms of, do I love all the books? No. But one of the things as a comic book fan, and I'll use this word as probably dramatic, but I feel tired of getting almost extorted by the comic book companies in terms of, do you want to enjoy X-Men? If you want to, you need to give us $60 a month because we're literally going to make it that the titles cross over so much that you literally can't enjoy most of the titles unless you pick up a lot of them. Where I'm so impressed, and I know they're finally doing a crossover event with Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman at some point here, where they're going to appear in each other's books. But that they went a year to really establish these characters. And if you just liked Absolute Batman, guess what? You didn't need to buy any other comics. If you
Yep.
liked Wonder Woman, you didn't need to buy anything else. They've
Nope.
done one tie-in that largely, I mean, I'm sure it will play a factor eventually, but honestly, if you missed that, it's not like it enhances or takes away from the experience of those other books that you're reading. And I give them so much credit for that because they've avoided that temptation. I am sure eventually there will be an event. We see DCKO coming out where we're seeing teases that the absolute characters might be in there. But I do think even if they have one event, as long as it's one event, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
What I will say I've loved is, and this is where the second point is, I'm buying comic books I've never really bought for as long as I've bought here. I don't know that I've ever bought a 12 issue run of Wonder Woman. I don't think I've ever independent, and it's not that I haven't tried. It's just none of them have grabbed me. I wasn't alive for when George Perez's run came out. I probably would have bought that monthly, but but the Absolute Wonder Woman, 12 issues in, I haven't dropped the book, and to be honest, I don't really have plans to unless they do something stupid. Absolute Batman, it's a great comic. I enjoy it more than the main continuity one, despite the fact that I like the main continuity Batman better. But Scott Snyder has come up with this really interesting approach. Absolute Superman, I have to accept that it's almost just a different character, that it's not Clark Kent. But what I'll give all the books, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, the three that are a year old, they have taken an approach where I think they have done a great job of, if you did a Venn diagram of the actual character and the absolute universe, there's enough crossover. I think Batman, especially, where you're like, I recognize 70% of this character. And the other 30% makes it interesting enough to justify its own existence. I think Wonder Woman's pretty close on that too. Superman's probably the most distant, although with Lois and Jimmy getting more integrated in there and them really focusing on him being not killing and never taking a life, there's enough recognizable. I really appreciate they've done that to make it where these books, they have a reason they exist. It's not just, hey, it's Batman and we're doing all the same stories just at a fresher point. They've actually taken this as an opportunity to give you a different version of the character. And while sometimes it goes too far and sometimes it doesn't, I think it's worked so far. Mike, I'll go to you for this. I know the one you're most in on is obviously Flash. That's your
Right.
character. They made the decision, Flash, that it's not Barry Allen, it's Wally West. I know you've been keeping up with it. Have been reading as well, but you're the Flash guy. So what is your thoughts on Absolute Flash so far and how they've handled that from that end with his character?
It's just an interesting approach for Wally. You get this this new origin story for him, and they really have, crafted kind of a new way forward. And that's really the foundations of all these books. And like you said, the Venn diagram thing, there's enough of Wally in there for me to recognize him and go with him on this new adventure. It is like a different character, but this is a little bit different universe. And so I feel at home with it, and I'm down to take the ride. And I think that's where, these reboots in the past kind of, sometimes lost us, especially with the weirdness of the continuity and trying to weave continuity into it, and then create new continuity that was even weirder than the first continuity. So, but yeah, I think, for Wally, and although, I wish they'd do the same for Barry,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe they'll save that for the main continuity, which they've hinted at that we're getting Barry again. But anyway, for Absolute Universe, I'm down for it. I think it was a bold step, but I think it was something that was needed. And, we were calling for it for a long time for both Marvel and DC. And I'm glad they tried it out and they see that they can successfully do it.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing we've had is like Absolute Martian Manhunter's been a great comic book, and it's because they did a unique approach to it too. And I think that's what's interesting is like Absolute Martian Manhunter is just it's a unique comic. You don't see any other comic on the stands
Mm-mm.
that looks that way. And I think what a brilliant approach for a character like that who has routinely struggled to have his own solo book. Um, I think overall, the approach they're taking with Catwoman and giving her a mini series here, I think that's the other part I've appreciated is there's been a slow climb with this. This didn't start. One of the things you and I always bemoan when they do these launches, X-Men being the main example, 14 books all at once. What I love with this is, hey, a year of these three, and about halfway through that year, we're going to roll out three more. And then now we're getting Absolute Green Arrow and Absolute Catwoman. And I think Catwoman is just a miniseries, to be honest. I love the fact that we're going to be in year two and we're only 8 books total. And I think Catwoman will be 5 issues, so you're back down to 7. I love that they've done a slow roll and we're not hitting here with old absolute Nightwing and absolute Red Hood and absolute Batgirl and absolute Detective Comics and absolute Batman. I love that they've done a slow roll and actually, in my opinion, shown some restraint. I think that's one of the coolest things they've done.
Yeah, and it's like we were saying, if do give us what do one book right and put your best people on it. And by slow rolling it like this, they were really able to do it. They put their top tier talent on it. They've let them all have their own little breathing room to get started. And I think that helped it a bunch. I really did.
Mhm.
And then, you get people liking Batman, and then maybe they're going to try Superman, and then they like Superman, and then Wonder Woman comes out. Well, let me try Wonder Woman. I like Batman and Superman. So it's just good strategy, I think.
No, that word of mouth is carrying it for it. Um,
Hmm.
we will say with this has not all been great though, in that there is one glaring book that you and we tried. I think I got 3 issues in. I think you stopped after one, and honestly, everything I've seen is made it the right call. And it is where it's worrisome for one that's been announced. Absolute Green Lantern to me was 100% a misfire in that
Yeah.
they made this decision to make Joe Mullen the lead of the book. Hal Jordan became Black Hand, so you make not only is Hal not the main character, you make him more of a villainous character. You can say it's tragically villainous. I think that was a misstep. You could have made John Stewart the lead. You could have made Guy Gardner the lead. You could have made Kyle Rayner the lead. The decision to make Joe Mullen a character who's very obscure with only a very recent 12 issue series as the lead, I think was just such a huge mistake. And that's where that book lost us. I think the other part, this is where Absolute Green Arrow to me is going to be an issue in that shockingly they killed Oliver Queen in the miniseries of the one shot they did. So in all likelihood, much like Absolute Green Lantern, we're probably going to see someone else's Green Arrow. Could be Roy Harper, could be Connor Hawke, who's his son. It'll be interesting what they go with. To me, I think that's the balance that they hit with these other books and where Green Lantern didn't hit, like, at least for me, was absolute Batman being Bruce Wayne, but a different version of Bruce Wayne is why you still love the book. I think the same thing for Flash with Wally, Diana, and Wonder Woman, Clark, and the Superman book. The decision to do what they did with both Green Arrow and Green Lantern, is that why those didn't hit for you as well, or why we're worried about the upcoming Green Arrow one? Is that kind of where that lost you to?
I think so, because we sidestepped the concept. The concept was to kind of re-envision these standard characters that we know and give us something that we recognize, and can jump on board with. And when you step outside the formula, it's a risk. But
Mhm.
this whole thing was a risk-taking adventure, venture. So they wanted to see how far they could take it. And that's something they probably would have done in an alternate universe story, or a different, whatever. But anyway, yeah, they tried it. They couldn't help themselves, right? That's part of the old
They
formula.
had to have one book, I think, where they're like,
Yeah,
let's do and I think that's why. Yeah, I'm just gonna say with Green Lantern, it's so interesting with me why they won't just accept the truth of what Green Lantern is.
yeah,
Um, I love John Stewart, great character. He is the Green Lantern for many people because of that Justice League cartoon.
yeah.
Kyle Rayner was a great Green Lantern in the '90s. Guy Gardner has his fans, but like folks, the Green Lantern is Hal Jordan. And that's not to say demeaning these other characters. You can love them. I know they have fans. The Green Lantern that people want to see is Hal Jordan. And I know that, it doesn't mean John's a bad character. It doesn't mean Kyle's a bad character. But this decision they made, I think, and we've tried this so many times with Green Lantern to make it someone other than Hal. it just doesn't work. He is the Green Lantern. It's trying to, and I get it. The Green Lantern Corps, it's all kinds of ring bearers and all kinds of different. And you technically could do a title with any of those ones, and it be called Green Lantern and be accurate. But Hal is the Green Lantern. He is the
Yeah,
Green Lantern. And I don't know why they go with that. And I think that is where I will say I worry about Green Arrow is obviously we don't know much yet. We don't know much on the creative team. We don't know the approach. But when you kill Oliver Queen before you launch the Green Arrow book, that's the Han Solo. I got a bad feeling about this thing kind of
yeah.
comes to mind,
I
and
got
I don't.
nothing. I don't know what happened in the editorial room that day down in in Manhattan, but something happened in the editorial room, and they were like, "Oh yeah, oh, don't we have to do a Green Arrow comic? Oh yeah, but we already killed Oliver Queen. Ah, we'll figure it out."
Yeah, it's. I think that's the interesting part in this. Green Arrow. Well, this isn't a Green Arrow video, but I guess we always kind of go in different topics on here. They announce his solo comics getting canceled in the main universe. Then
Yeah,
you kill him in the absolute universe. But then you're doing a Green Arrow. It's just really rough for a great character to have that happen in such a short span. And what I get really tired of with Green Arrow, I love Green Arrow as a character. And so many times he gets seen as like, oh, like discount Batman because he's a billionaire with the Arrow Cave and all this stuff. But he's absolutely not. And I
no,
think that could have been such a unique thing in that, the pitch they seemed to have was he still had his money, unlike Bruce Wayne. But that would have been a different power dynamic where maybe he uses that in a different way in this, and that, Green Lantern or Green Arrow largely since the O'Neill and Adams series is mainly eschewed being a billionaire and not
yeah.
really enjoyed that, or he sees it as, an obligation to help folks or to use it to fight back. I think because maybe that's the approach of the main universe, they didn't know what approach to take with him. But
Maybe.
it's so sad to me with Green Arrow because he is such a good character. I'm like, man, you're going to do an absolute Green Arrow series and Arthur Queen is dead. Like this is depressing right from the start
Yeah.
that they go with it. Um, Mike, I'll go to you on this to kind of close. We're still really enjoying this line. I think the biggest reason it's worked is the creatives they got. And I think the big reason that has helped is, the Ultimate Universe, it kind of failed, in my opinion, that first one, not the second one they're ending. But I thought the Ultimate Universe failed because after they got past the initial like year or two, they started doing these weird things of like, well, here's the Ultimate Universe version of the death of Gwen Stacy. Here's the Ultimate Universe version of the Clone Saga. And it's like, guys, this was supposed to be a fresh new approach, not,
Yeah.
hey, it's the same story told a little differently. I think as long as the absolute universe does this very diverging path where it's different, it will be successful. Do you think integrating more of the classic elements into these books would help them? Or do you think they need to keep that stark difference of like there's very different dynamics at play? What do you think that balance should be as they go forward if they want this to succeed?
Oh, good question. I think that this first year is all about feeling out the terrain and figuring where the books can go. Um, I I wouldn't break the formula right now, especially since we're starting a third wave. But you could see them, introduce some more familiar elements into these characters as they age into, year two and beyond. And I don't think it would hurt it. Because, one of the reasons we love these books, like you said, there's enough familiarity with the characters built in, so we still kind of know who these characters are, and we're with them in this new approach. That was a stroke of genius, and I'm sure it wasn't easy to do. And there were some swings and misses too,
Mm-hmm.
with Green Lantern and all. But yeah, if you were going to add in some more familiar elements into year two on a successful book like Batman, let me push it back to you. Like, so year two for Batman,
Mm-hmm.
absolute Batman, what element would you like to see be brought back in?
The only negative part that I saw this, I think it's cool they're giving Catwoman a series. I would have loved to have seen her as a recurring portion of the book.
Hmm.
I would like to see a little more Jim Gordon. I think that's one thing missing from that is he's been very much a different player in it. But I think they've done well with Batman. The the parts that I wonder on, Superman is probably the book I'm most conflicted on, in that it is really weird to see a Superman universe where his main villains have kind of been the peacemakers, and then
Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul and Talia, where it's like that's, and they've had Brainiac in there, but like you do wonder. I guess it's kind of a weird switch of let's take a classic Batman villain and make him like Superman's main villain. So I would like to see more Lex Luthor kind of stuff in Superman. But I think, like you said, part of why these are succeeding is it is different. And I think if they keep that for Flash, what's so interesting with Flash is I haven't loved the comic a ton, but I do love again the swings they took, making the rogues like a military unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of a cool pitch. Making Grodd kind of like his like monkey sidekick, like Abu in Aladdin or something is the best comparison I can think.
Exactly. Right.
It's kind of interesting, and I think bringing the classical elements in with these like twists is what works. And I think the coolest example of this that's happened is I love the way Snyder had Batman's villains be his childhood friends, but they still arrived at their conclusions and destinies to be Riddler, Two-Face, and Penguin, albeit
But
in a very twisted way, which is
remember
kind of
when they first came out, we were kind of worried about that approach,
cool.
but
No, and
it
it
turned out
worked.
well.
Yeah, I think what will make or break this line, and I guess this is what we'll close it on. I think this line will go as long as they keep the creatives they have on these books. I
Yeah.
think Absolute Batman, I don't know that you keep it going after Scott Snyder. I think it
Yeah.
might, much like the Ultimate Universe is doing where it ends. If Scott Snyder wants to write it for 5 to 10 years, which hopefully he wants to do a Jeff Johns Green Lantern esque run where he goes for a decade, or some of those classic ones like Lee on so many of those books and Kirby on some of those books. I hope we can get that. Um, just to pose it on you on this 5 years from now, Mike, we look into our crystal ball. Are we still, or do we still have an absolute universe 5 years from now? Or do you think it might curtail quicker than that?
I would like to think so. I would, because I really want it to be successful. And I know the readership wants it too. So I think, and I feel this is probably part of the pitch for this was that we're going to hook new readers. And which seems like they did. And if you hooked new readers, you gotta keep it going. And so, as long as the sales are there, which I think they will be, as long as you keep writing good stories, it could be here. What I'm afraid of is some of these big name talents will move on to other things, and the books will suffer eventually. I just don't feel like we're in that era anymore where you put a creative team on a book and it lasts for more than a year. It's going to be rough in the new age of things, but um, that's their job to keep it going. So we'll see if they do.
Hopefully, I think it's interesting, but I would say to thus far, it's been an unqualified success. I think you can't look at this and say that there's anything with it where you go, oh, but this. I think the fact that I'm reading 6 or 7 new comic books from a line, and you've only had one real misfire, in my opinion, I think is a really strong indicator that they did the right thing. And I'll say every time I know a week that Absolute Batman is coming out, there is a little extra excitement to get to that store and get that book first. Not quite where like when Conan comes out, but it's
Yeah,
close.
yeah,
And that's really, really cool. And that I wouldn't have anticipated that when it was first announced. But let us know. What do you guys think down below? What are your thoughts on the Absolute Universe a year in? What's worked for you, what hasn't. If some of the books we mentioned you absolutely can't stand, let us know. It's always interesting for us to see. I think one of the coolest things that Mike and I get to see out of this is when we see the comments, we see how many different opinions there are, and how
yeah,
sometimes you can see a book and it's like we think it's awful and other people are like, no, that's amazing. And so if you've got thoughts like that down below, what's worked or not worked, let us know. And question, if they're going to put one in the comments down below, do you think we will have an absolute universe 5 years from now, or do you think it will be wrapped up by then? Be interested to see what you guys think. As always, folks, thank you for watching. God bless you. You have a great rest of your day.
thanks everybody.